shore. And we read later in the passage, they're about 100 yards offshore. So not too far, but it's the length of a football field. And it's dark. It's just getting light. Is there a reason they don't recognize him? Maybe it's pretty natural. But that's not the point either. They don't recognize him, and he says something to them. This is what he says, starting in verse 5. Jesus said to them, "Boys, you don't have a bit to eat, do you?" In some translations that you'll have in front of you, "Children, do you have any fish?" Something like that. That's fine, but probably a better way to translate this is something like this. "Hey lads, hey guys, you don't have a bite to eat, do you?" And they say, "Nope. Just an ordinary chat, them in the boat, some guy on the shore." And then he says, "Cast it on the right side of the boat. You'll find some." Now, just a little side note. In English, right is the opposite of left, but right is also the opposite of wrong. And in English, we can do some pretty fun play on words. Well, if you cast it on the right side of the boat, you're doing it wrong, man. That doesn't work in Greek or Hebrew or Aramaic. Right is the opposite of left. It's not the opposite of wrong. So this has nothing to do about right versus wrong here. He's just saying, do the other side. You'll find something. So, they do. There's an old gentleman, a pastor, I believe, who traveled to Galilee recently, and he was on the lake of Galilee, and he was with his friend, and his friend got in a boat and was fishing, and he was standing right on the side. Now, his friend was not as far away as Jesus was from them. He was right there. And the friend saw a little school or shoal of fish kind of right under the surface on the other side from the guy fishing. So from the side, he said to his friend, "It's right behind you. Throw it over there." Is that what's going on here? I don't think anybody could see from 100 yards out that there happened to be fish there, that these fishermen haven't found the whole night trolling this whole area. This seems to be something a bit more profound than that ordinary situation. And we'll see in a moment just how profound it is. So Jesus tells them, cast it on the other side. So they do. They cast it, and now they're not able to haul it in. These 7 guys, most of whom are lifelong fishermen, can't pull the net into the boat. There's so many fish in it because of the quantity of fish. And it's at that moment that it dawns on John. That's the Lord! This is so exciting. I mean, look at this. The amount of fish that these fishermen are trying to tug in. How did Jesus do that? Well, John told us in the very beginning of his gospel who Jesus is. All things were created through Jesus. And without him, not one thing has been made that has been made. I mean, this is the man who created wine, good-tasting aged wine from water. He did all sorts of other things too. And here he goes again. This same Jesus, just miraculously in control of this. An abundance of fish right behind them that weren't there before. It reminds me of something else Jesus said earlier in his ministry that John records. John chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus says this, I came so that my sheep may have life and have it in excess. Have it abundantly. Have it overflowing. Well, this right here is a picture of that. Jesus has just created life for them. Fish to feed them. But he didn't just give them what they needed. He gave them so much more than they could possibly use. They can't even bring it into the boat. This looks to me like a picture of Jesus giving life to his sheep and giving it overflowing in excess. This is who Jesus is. Jesus is revealing himself. So let me ask you the question, and this isn't a rhetorical question. I actually want to ask you for your opinion about this. Let me read to you this next little bit, and the question I'm going to ask is, how will you summarize this miracle? Okay? That's the question that I'm going to ask you in a moment. Here's the end of this part of the story, though. The disciple whom Jesus loved therefore said to Peter, "It's the Lord!" When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he threw on his outer garment, for he was stripped for work, and he threw himself into the sea. The other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, about 100 yards off. You see, this is an amazing moment for all of the disciples. And they have some different reactions, each of which is really good. The moment they realize this is the resurrected Lord Jesus who is here, and it has just blessed us with all this, John, who typically is pretty quick at discerning, John recognizes, it's the Lord. So he gives a testimony. He sees Jesus is here, and he shouts it out. Peter's very different personality. Peter just jumps right in. He just wants to be with him. I wonder what you would be like. That would be worth thinking about. Remember, this story is not actually about us, so I don't want to dwell on that right now, but it's worth contemplating at some point. If I were confronted with the glorious Creator, Jesus, raised from the dead, which actually I have been, though not quite this dramatically, what's my response? What's my personality? How do I live out my delight at seeing the Lord? So that is a question for you to contemplate for yourselves, perhaps. Okay, here's the question. Perhaps you've been thinking about it. How would you summarize Jesus' miracle? Go ahead, shout out some things. Miraculous, good. Okay, what else?
Provided.
I heard a voice.
He provided.
Provided, okay. It's miraculous. It has something to do with providing, provision, good. What else?
Loving.
Loving. Why loving? Who said that?
I do.
There you go. Why do you think that, Dee?
Because he loved him so much that he wanted to reveal himself to them.
Very good. All right. Loving, miraculous, providing something. Anything else?
Exciting.
Exciting. And I heard a voice again. My mother-in-law. Exciting. You want to elaborate on that?
I mean, he didn't just provide, it was overwhelming how he provided.
That's right. He could have provided a fish for each of them. And we're going to see in a moment, he does actually do something like that also. But here, oh, yeah, how exciting is this? Out of nowhere comes excess. So here's a way that I summarize this. And there could be other ways. You've mentioned things that I'm not going to mention now. It's about him revealing himself, remember. So, summarizing his miracle, Jesus is revealing himself in power as he gives life in excess. Abundant life. We could mention so many more things. But those are something to chew on about how Jesus is revealing himself. Before we shift on